Welcome to the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's online worship service. I'm Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom, and I'm honored to serve as the First Unitarian Society of Milwaukee's senior minister. We welcome people of all genders, sexualities, ages, races, ethnicities, histories, and bodies. We welcome your mind, your heart, and your spirit. We welcome all you're bringing with you today and all your heart longs to set down. We'd like to pay a special welcome to guests who are joining us today. If you're visiting for the first time or joining us from afar, why don't you say hello in the chat now and tell us where you're joining us from? I welcome everyone into our worship service by inviting you to repeat our first church mission after me. We gather to nurture the spirit, engage the mind, and inspire action. Let's go now to our beloved sanctuary to light the chalice, which is the symbol of Unitarian Universalism. Today is the opening Sunday of our annual pledge drive, which will end with a celebration on Sunday, March 27th. As we do every year, we begin with a covenant between the congregation and our pledge team and visiting stewards. At our in-person services this morning, the congregation is affirming the pledge team and visiting stewards' work to lead us as a community of generosity and abundance. Every stewardship team at First Church is led by members just like you who work so hard to gather the resources our community needs to make church happen. Today, we are asking all of you at home to covenant with our pledge team and our visiting stewards to each do our part to financially support our congregation and to respond to them if they call us as they're doing the hard work of stewardship on behalf of all of us in order to make church possible. We want to introduce that team to you today. But before we do that, I want to take a moment to just thank you, all of you, for all that you've given to sustain the church over the past 2 years. It has been a brutal pandemic, and it's kept us physically apart from one another. And yet you have continued your financial commitments to our congregation, and that has carried us through. Thank you so much. Your continuing generosity has meant that we've been able to create worship every Sunday since the pandemic began in order to nourish our people's spirits. It's meant we've been able to continue ministry in small groups, keeping people connected when they've needed it the most. It's meant we've been able to meet our community's unprecedented need for pastoral care. Thank you so much for your generosity. The pledge team and the visiting stewards are going to work to lead the work of generosity during our pledge drive this year. As you know, our church depends on pledges, commitments from each member and friend stating how much you intend to give over the course of the next year. And that helps us create an annual budget that pays for the programs and staff and material resources that make our church. Our pledge team chair is Mark Chambers, tireless and inspiring leader. And he's going to introduce himself now and then invite each of our pledge team and visiting steward members to introduce themselves so that when they call you and you answer that phone call, you'll be able to put a face with the voice of your fellow First Church member on the other line.
Hi, everyone. I'm Bob Balder's son, and this is my second year on the Pledge Committee. And I joined the Pledge Committee because it's a way I have of making a commitment to the church.
Hello, I'm Jackie Zandy. It is my pleasure to be serving on the Pledge Committee.
Hi, everybody. Matt Burns. I'm a member of the Pledge team, and we've been a member of the church since 2001. Our first service was the Sunday after 9/11, and the church meant a lot then and continues to mean a lot to us.
Hi, I'm Nancy Scranzi. I've belonged to the church since 1985. I love this church, its Sunday services, its people, and all that it challenges me to do. And that's why I will be calling on some folks about their pledges this year.
Hi, I'm Pat McFarland. I'm happy to be on the Pledge team. And the reason I love First Church is I surround myself with people who inspire action and who make me feel loved. And you make me laugh.
Hi, I'm Julie Hamrick. I've been a member of the church for probably 25 years. And the reason I'm a visiting steward is because it's a way of giving back to the community that means so much to me, especially this time in the world. Thanks.
Hello, my name is Mark Chambers. I am serving this year again as the chair of the First Church Pledge Drive. I am truly grateful to be part of this effort and to be able to work alongside the group of people who just introduced themselves. A few members who were not able to be part of this ceremony, I want to make sure are mentioned. They include Kathy Donius and Jeff Hansen, who are members of the Pledge team, and Sally Lewis, who is serving as a visiting steward this year. I am confident that with the generous support of you, the members of the First Church congregation, that we will again have a successful 2022 pledge drive. Thank you all very much.
Good morning. My name is Joby Clark, and it is my pleasure to be your worship associate. The last time I sat in these pews, the last time we sat in these pews together on a Sunday was March 8th, 2020. Dale Skaggs, the worship associate for the service, spoke of his farm and shared his poem, "The Heart Has Its Own Weather." Our congregation sang "Blue Boat Home" in the sanctuary, and Reverend Jennifer Nordstrom gave her sermon, "How Do I Learn How to Live?" I left church that day wanting to take all of you home with me, but settled on the more practical idea of a hymnal. Obtaining special permission to take home a copy of Singing the Living Tradition, I would be able to photocopy a handful of songs I'd grown up hearing as a little girl in another UU congregation years earlier. You see, I had the good fortune of being born to a mother of Mormon heritage and a father of Jewish descent. What spiritually based institution but Unitarian Universalism could possibly make room for such a wide-ranging identity? Raised as Unitarian Universalists, my older sister Nadia and I could grow up embracing our family members and their respective faiths in equal measure. But leaving First Church on that March 8th day, I would not know, nor would any of us, that this would be the last time we would stand together here in this sanctuary on a Sunday for the next 2 years. Adrenaline is what carried me through the first 2 months of the shutdown as my husband and I navigated work from home with 2 children suddenly making the shift to virtual learning. We did the pandemic things. We swabbed down our groceries. We Zoomed with family members, adopted pets, and encouraged one another and took turns lighting the way in the darkness. That spring, though, the collective angst and uncertainty of the pandemic, coupled with an administration hell-bent on steamrolling human evolution, was a fuse waiting to be lit. And lit it was. The murders of Ahmaud Arbery, Breonna Taylor, and George Floyd struck a match, and the long wick of murders preceding them burned ferociously that summer. These deaths pulled at anyone who believed in the inherent worth and dignity of every person. Proof be damned. The Black Lives Matter protests served as faith in that belief. The drumming hearts and marching limbs filled the streets, becoming a different sort of sanctuary. In the fall, I worked to sustain that flame however I could, educating my children, my husband and I working to uncover what we didn't know, emphasizing stories of racial injustice at work. The quiet streets and the dormant period of winter took its toll, however. Another year of working from home with 2 children in virtual school. Spiritually, I was feeling crushed. Adrenaline only lasts so long. I envied my Christian friends who gathered at their homes for Bible study, worshiping in the collective, with access to something so tangible as a book. I craved the opportunity to worship collectively. I longed to see my people, my tribe. I realized my ability to worship couldn't be found in a hymnal. It was all of you that I was missing. I experienced a crisis of faith. But in what? As a Unitarian Universalist, I'm not required to have any. In fact, I'm allowed to ask as many questions as I damn well please. It's practically part of the membership application. But at a time when the world is being hammered by false truths and disease, in what could I keep my faith? Here I was, a 43-year-old Unitarian Universalist, unsure of what to hold on to and having no proof that it existed. What was it that I had so badly wanted to take home with me the previous March? And then it came to me. The only thing more terrifying than failing to see proof of humans being treated with dignity and respect was to surrender my faith in the idea altogether. So it became a choice to nurture this faith, to cultivate it, to bury bulbs in the ground in the fall and experience their resurrection in the spring, to cultivate the gardeners among us, literally and figuratively. Brother David Steindl-Rast, an American Catholic Benedictine monk, writes, "Deep trust in life is not a feeling, but a stance you deliberately take. It is an attitude we call courage." I took the stance of a gardener, working a part-time gig at a garden center last summer, just so I could find my salvation. And now, I see proof of this faith everywhere. It is every time and everywhere someone stands up and speaks up. It is every time and everywhere a nation of people rise up, knowing their worth and demanding their dignity. It is every time and everywhere we lean into the wind and not away from it. We have leaned into the wind. Wherever the fight is, so too is the faith. I have kept the faith. We have kept the faith. And now with all of you, I can worship again too.
Rise up, oh flame, by thy light glowing, bring to us beauty, vision and joy. Rise up, oh flame, by thy light glowing, bring to us beauty, vision and joy. Rise up, oh flame, by thy light glowing, bring to us beauty, vision and joy. Rise up, oh flame, by thy light glowing, bring to us beauty, vision and joy. Rise up, oh flame, by thy light glow, bring to us beauty, vision and joy. Rise up, oh flame, by thy light glow, Rise up, oh flame.
In the turn of the year from 2021 to 2022, a woman named Laura Foose in Saskatoon, Canada, was cold. I mean, she was a really cold. The day after Christmas in Saskatoon was negative 45 degrees Fahrenheit, and there were months of winter ahead of her. Now, Laura hates winter, but something in her resisted the slide into despair, being greased by freezing temperatures and mounting COVID cases. She looked for a handhold. Laura is a member of the United Church of Canada, who tried to connect their members with joy and each other by having a snow and ice competition. Laura decided to participate, and she started making ice bricks on that freezing December day. At first, she thought she would make a few colorful ice bricks, but then she was building an entire rainbow-colored ice wall. Then she was adding ice flourishes, colorful ice snowflakes, windows. Her wall morphed into a fort where she could gather safely with friends outside and also have some wind block. People started stopping on the street and talking to Laura, honking when they drove by and saw her building this colorful wall. The colorful ice brick wall was bringing joy to her neighbors as well as to herself. Laura said she had the most fun talking to all the people who stopped to comment on what she was doing. I've had more connection in the last 2 weeks, she said, than I've had in the last 2 years. Friends, it has been a long, cold winter and a long, difficult 2 years of being metaphorically out in the cold, in the pandemic, separated, missing one another. Like Laura, many of us have made colorful ice bricks out of the cold. We've found hobbies and creative endeavors and ways to connect with one another. We've engaged with the church's creative alternatives, figuring out new and different ways to bring joy into our lives and the lives of those around us. And it's been cold. There have been negative 45-degree days in 2 years since we've seen some of our people. At First Church, we will gather together in person today for indoor Sunday worship for the first time since March of 2020. Our fingers might be a bit freezing. We might feel a bit isolated or sad, longing for connection with one another. Some folks are not able to join us in person for a variety of reasons, and like you right now, are joining us online. As we enter this new phase of church in a pandemic, we need to remember our connections, rekindle our fires, and renew our faith in each other, our faith in community, our faith in humanity, our faith in joy itself. We start with remembering our last Sunday together in church, remembering our first Sunday when we were no longer in the building, those first few hours of confusion, those first few weeks of loss. We might feel glimmers of all of that, the fading in and back of March of 2020 here in March of 2022. We remember all that has been lost. People, dreams, connections. But there is more to remember than just loss. In these years apart, babies have been born. New love has taken root, new meaning and purpose has arisen in people's lives. Many people have gotten really clear about what is important in their lives and have decided to put their time and energy and resources into what matters most. In this season of emergence, of poking our heads up and out of the ground and assessing the world around us again, we must remember what matters most. Where do we find love? Where do we experience belonging? What are our values and how do we live them? Where do we learn and grow and find challenge? What brings us joy and connection? Where does the heart open again? We must also rekindle our sparks, our fire of passion, warm our hearts up. The good news about relighting a fire is that it's usually easier than starting from scratch. I have an image of us in our little rainbow igloos rubbing 2 sticks together over a small nest of dry grass. It can take a long time to get a spark from kindling. It's not always easy. Coming back into church, into the world, into social connections might not be particularly easy. Learning how to do church in multiple modes, online and in person simultaneously, won't be easy. This all might be awkward at times. Our social skills might have dwindled a little bit, or we might not quite yet know how to reach across from room to Zoom. And that's okay. We're all in this together, learning as we go. And we might as well acknowledge, hey, this is a little strange. It's a little awkward. We can muddle through together. There will also be grief and trauma still stored in our bodies and our spirits. Let's just name right now that some of it is going to come out sideways in anger or frustration. Some of our reactions might be disproportionate, and we might veer into blaming ourselves or others for the consequences of a pandemic over which no one had control. These are normal human coping mechanisms and responses. And we can practice forgiving ourselves for them and having grace with one another when they show up, because they will. There will be sudden and surprising tears, or irritation or anger that might seem misplaced. This is going to be a time for practice, for our spiritual practices of grounding, deep breathing, taking pauses when we need to, and letting the emotions move through the body before returning with our more grounded, more compassionate, more present selves. Together, we can process the grief and the trauma. Moving our bodies together in safe space helps heal trauma. Making meaning helps process grief. Connecting with people we trust helps heal trauma. Communities of care help process grief. Friends, we will catch the spark in our rekindling, and warmth and light will return with new fire. We are alchemists of community, and we can turn a little dry nest of grass into a fire. We can turn a wall of ice into a beautiful, colorful rainbow fort. We can let sun rays glint off snow melt and squeeze into the locks on our hearts, or let fire smoke twist in and warm, slowly letting the magic of sun or smoke open us up to a new day. After all that has happened, after all that is happening, we need revival. It is not blasphemous to dance in the face of suffering, to experience joy in the thickness of loss. It may not always be accessible, and no one needs to force a smile when sorrow pervades. But we can look to oppressed people and marginalized communities. We can look to people who are suffering from illness or loss, and yes, even from war, to know that joy is a tool of resistance, not complicity. Joy gives us the fuel we need to continue the journey of resistance, the journey of survival, the journey of turning the tables and dismantling the systems that have caused harm. We celebrate life in concert with defending it. We connect with humanity in order to keep honoring it. There are so many reasons for grief today, and they live in my heart as well as yours. Last week, Russia invaded Ukraine. and threw thousands of lives into fear and chaos and potential death, and emboldened fascism and imperialism. I mean, this attack is part of Russia's imperialism and long relationship of oppression with Ukraine, and it's related to the control of energy resources and fossil fuels and climate change. It brings with it existential threat of nuclear weapons. There's reason to grieve here and scream, and also work against fascism and empire. And in the midst of it, there are regular Ukrainians laughing and being saucy and eating cake and experiencing beauty. Because being human in the midst of tragedy is necessary for the soul's survival. We have learned that here too, in the different but still tragic grief of the pandemic, the different but still tragic grief of the ongoing racial nightmare, the different but still terrifying threats against democracy here. And we have learned how to dance in the midst of it, how to laugh and be saucy and eat cake and appreciate the beauty of the morning. We have made sparkling rainbow walls of ice to bring joy to our neighbors when it is 45 degrees below zero. We know how to do this. The ice walls, beautiful and creative as they are, friends, I promise you they will thaw out eventually. The seasons will shift, and so will this pandemic, and we will increasingly be able to gather together without fear. We will heal. Today, may we remember the losses and the gifts of this season. May we rekindle our connections with each other and our passion for life, and may we renew our faith in humanity, in community, in joy itself. Dear ones, today is the opening Sunday of our congregation's pledge drive. We have the opportunity to recommit to this community and to this faith. The urgency and importance of church has been so clear in the past 2 years, and it is your support that has enabled us to meet that clear need. Your support has kept our community going through 2 years of tumult and loss. It's enabled our ministers and our pastoral care associates to make over 600 pastoral care contacts. Now, for reference, in a normal year, we have a little over 150 pastoral care contacts. The need over the past 2 years has just been more than double what it usually is, and your support has helped us meet that need. Your support has also helped us meet the urgent need to defend democracy over the past 2 years. Our members and friends helped people access voting in the 2020 election, registering voters and getting out the vote, and poll working, poll watching, working as trained election defenders on election day. Your support is continuing to help defend democracy through our current work on fair maps and civic education. The need to dismantle racism has been so stark in the past 2 years as George Floyd's murder ripped pain through our nation. Your support helped us participate in dismantling racism through educating ourselves with programs like Beloved Conversations and workshops on reparations, and through following the leadership of our partners in communities of color in Milwaukee. In 2020 and 2021, First Church members participated in or led over 320 anti-racism events with nearly 10,000 attendees. That's just 5 times what we did in 2019 because the need was so great and you helped us meet it. Most importantly, though, your support has enabled us to meet the need for ministry, connection, and meaning making through worship, religious education, and small groups. Our members have told us that First Church worship has been a lifeline for them during this pandemic. Our religious education program has connected with children and youth of all ages during this isolating time. Last week, you saw the youth in our youth group lead a worship service on our First Church history, one that one of our members called stunning. Your support has created the nurturing space of small groups in theme circles and poetry contemplation, connect and reflect, and many more small groups throughout the church. Your fellow members have told us that these small groups have been the primary touchstone for them through the pandemic, sustaining their spirits and keeping them connected through these difficult times. Your commitment to this community provides so much for our members, and we are so, so grateful for it. Today, we're asking you to recommit to the community with a pledge for next year. Pledges allow us to make a budget for next year and keep providing the ministries of pastoral care and social justice and worship and religious education and small groups. If you can, please consider increasing your pledge this year. We're asking the folks who can to increase between 5 and 10% depending on your capacity. If it's not feasible for you to increase your pledge this year, we understand, and we are so, so grateful for what you are able to give. Everyone's contributions, including non-financial contributions, create this community. If you need a waiver for your pledge this year, don't worry about it. Just reach out to our membership coordinator, Lynn Jacoby, and talk to her about it so she knows what's going on. But if you can make an increase, please do. You should have received your pledge drive materials in the mail this week, and you can make your pledge to First Church on the website, or you can mail back your pledge card, or you can bring it in and drop it off at church. Your support helps us continue to provide the ministry our members need, turn the technological corner into this new era of church happening online and in person simultaneously, and stay on track financially. Your support will help the community remember, rekindle, and renew in this season of emergence and return. Instead of making more rainbow ice walls, bring all the creativity you've been using to get yourself through these 2 years into church. Bring your humanity here. Bring your whole self in with all of its complexity. Bring it in to this rekindled warmth. May we be together in healing, in opening our hands and hearts. May we be blessed with abundance that also both gives and also receives. May it be so, and amen. It has been a blessing to be together. May you go out from here nourished and renewed, and use that to choose to bless the world. Until we meet again, may you be held, may you be healed, may you be whole. Blessed be, and amen.
We are going, heaven knows where we are going. We know within, and we will get there. Heaven knows how we will get there, but we know we will. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah. Whoa, yeah, yeah.